Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we'll be discussing the 1979 horror classic, The Amityville Horror, starring James Brolin, Margot Kidder, and Rod Steiger. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, we discuss guilty pleasures and forgotten classics. You can reach me on our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us the big thumbs up. You can also subscribe to our page on YouTube. Kevin D, that's me. You can also reach me on Twitter at KD9575. Go ahead and send me any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, questions, or any movie suggestions you might have. And I might just take you up on your advice. Okay? The Amityville Horror. In this movie, there was a house where a brutal mass murder occurred. Evidently, the son of the house flipped out and using a hunting rifle went door to door and wiped out his whole family. Killed his parents, killed his younger brothers and sisters. It was a big thing. So, after they've presumably cleaned up the house, it's now on the market. It's a beautiful big house on the water. But because there was that vicious mass murder, obviously there aren't too many takers. Then on the scene comes a young married couple, the Lutz family, George and Kathy. Recently married. She had 3 children of her own from a previous marriage or relationship. They wanted to get a house together, rather than moving into one of their apartments. They wanted to kind of fresh start, let's get our own house. Little out of their budget, but it's such a nice house, and it's obviously marked down. They figure, what the heck. However, the day they're moving in, subtle things start happening. Okay? George, for example, just feels cold. He shivers all the time. The family priest drops by unannounced to give the house a special blessing and is overcome with a feeling of dread. Flies start swarming all over him, and he's puking in the bushes afterwards. He's very upset. Later he's trying to call them. For some reason the phone won't work now, and he gets a blister on his hand where he's trying to talk on the phone, kind of a stigmata kind of deal. It's very upsetting. George starts acting strangely. He wakes up every night at 3:15 in the morning. This is significant because 3:15 is when the murders supposedly took place. Also, you've got the youngest daughter, Amy, begins speaking to her imaginary friend, Jody. There's a lot of weird little things that start happening. Little by little, George starts acting stranger and stranger. He's into his axe. He's always chopping wood and kind of looking at people and giving them the stink eye, and I'm going to get you with this axe. At one point, they go to a wedding. Okay, they leave little Amy at home. She's a bit under the weather. They hire a babysitter to take care of her. And when it's bedtime, the babysitter gets mysteriously locked in the closet. Okay, she's pounding on there, let me out, Amy, let me out. Amy doesn't do anything. She sits on the bed, in a trance, and watches her. To make matters stranger, okay, there's no lock on that door. Bum, bum, bum. Other things seem to happen, like the toilets clog up. I don't know if that's supernatural or if it's just a bad lunch at Taco Bell. Who knows? That thing happens. Her aunt, Kathy's aunt, who's the nun, shows up and is also overcome, puking in the bushes. It's very upsetting. And there's a lot of people who arrive at the house who immediately are overcome with a feeling of dread. George's business partner, his girlfriend or wife, whatever she is, she's like a medium or something and walks into, I don't like this house. The dog is clawing at a spot in the garage, or excuse me, in the basement. George goes in there with a hammer, a sledgehammer, smashes in there, and finds a red room with like kind of a well in it. It's all very strange. Kathy's very concerned about her husband who's gone through this bizarre transformation. She's also having nightmares of brutal murders when she's trying to sleep. So she goes down to the local newspaper, draws up some microfiche, if you will, of the murders that took place, and shockingly she discovers a bizarre resemblance between her husband and the murderer of his family. So, I don't know what's going on. I don't want to spoil everything for you. There's a lot of strange stuff that happens. For those of you guys who don't know, the murder actually did occur in the early to mid-70s. The guy claims, his name was Ronald DeFeo Jr., he claimed, that he heard voices, that they were plotting against him, his family was, so he had to take care of them. He also said, like, it was a mob hit. He had all sorts of crazy stories. He went to jail for quite a long time. And it's true that George and Kathy Lutz bought the place, stayed there for like a month, and left under the shroud of, the story of all these strange and horrifying things that seemed to occur. So this was a thing. I mean, then this guy, I think his name was Jay Anson, wrote the novel that basically said, this is a true story. I'm just retelling you what the Lutzes told him. The priest who actually took place, who was in the house where the flies attacked him, and while he was in there, he heard, "Get out!" He heard a scary voice. He backs it all up. He says this part really occurred. So is there some truth to it? I don't know. Later, the attorney for Ronald DeFeo Jr. actually sued the Lutzes, claiming that after a few bottles of wine, the three of them had concocted this bizarre story for attention, for money. Who knows? So it seems like it's fake, but people have lived in this house since then, like all the way to the present day, and no one else has said anything. No one else has had any kind of paranormal activity. So what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe it means something. Maybe it means nothing. They hired a variety of paranormal experts to come look at the house. Some have said, oh yes, I can feel the disturbance in the force. Other people have said this is all a bunch of baloney. So, who knows? So, needless to say, they made this movie. One thing that's interesting upon reading this, if you've seen or read The Shining, there are some similarities between The Shining and the Amityville Horror. You got two relatively reasonable father figure types who over the course of the book or the film kind of wig out, and by the end they're both swinging axes at people. So, coincidence? I don't know. Both places that were kind of haunted, I guess. Both had kind of psychic things going on with the daughter with her invisible friend, and you had the kid in The Shining, Danny, had his invisible friend, so it's all strange and unusual. Connections? I don't know. What can I tell you about this? You've got James Brolin, cast as George Lutz. They approached him to play this role. Initially, he wasn't too enthusiastic about it. They really didn't have a script. I mean, it didn't seem to be his cup of tea. And they said, well, go ahead and read the book and let us know what you think. So he sat down one evening and was reading, started at like 7 o'clock, was reading his book, and by 2 a.m. he was still reading it. He was so engrossed. And then, like, something fell over, his pants fell off the chair. I don't know what he was doing, not wearing pants, but whatever. And it startled him. He literally jumped up and banged his head on the ceiling. That's quite a jump, by the way. When that happened, he said, I'm in. Margot Kidder plays Kathy, his wife. She'd actually done Superman the year before and did that and then went into this movie. Margot Kidder, kind of a fox in 1979. Shocking. Anywho, so they both agreed to do this movie. Both of them were kind of like, in retrospect, didn't believe the story of the haunting or whatever. They actually didn't film on the actual location. They filmed it rather than Amityville, New York, they filmed it like New Jersey at a different house that happened to have the same kind of windows that looked kind of creepy. The producers of the movie tried to disseminate this information that like there were spooky things that were going on the set to try to like spur up interest in the movie. Nothing ever happened that was supernatural at all. James Brolin actually became friendly with the Lutzes over the course of this. Again, he thought they were nice people, but didn't believe the story about anything supernatural in the slightest. Although James Brolin did say after this he found it difficult to work again for 2 years because people just thought he was too creepy and cruel and violent and all sorts of other stuff. One thing about this movie, as you watch it, you realize usually there's a horror movie where it's revealed, oh, here's the cause of the problem. This is why the house is haunted. And by the end of the movie, they kind of resolve the problem, right? Oh, it all kind of fits into this neat little box as to why, these things happen and this is how they take care of it. Amityville Horror, the book and the movie don't work that way. If you really think about it, there are a lot of like speculations. Oh, the house was built on an old Indian burial ground, but who the heck knows? There really wasn't a lot kind of put into it. Is it haunted? Is it possessed? Are they ghosts? Are they demons? Who knows? The imaginary friend Jody. Who the heck is Jody? You know what I'm saying? It's like having read the book, Ronald DeFeo Jr. didn't have any brothers and sisters named Jody. There was no Jody who lived in the house before that. Now, the book suggested that Jody was a demonic, pig-like creature, which is, there you go. So there's that scene where Margot Kidder is in the room talking to her daughter. Oh, she's like, I was just talking to Jody. Jody climbed out the window. Margot Kidder looks out the window to kind of prove there's no Jody out there, and she sees, this is kind of a spoiler, sees these red eyes kind of looking at her, and you kind of hear a kind of a squeal. I don't know. I guess that there's the evil haunted demon pig outside the window. Also in the book, they talk about like kind of cloven pig-like hooves out in the snow. I don't know. I can't explain it. So that's Jody's the pig, I guess. Whatever floats your boat, right? This movie has a lot of creepy elements to it. Again, James Brolin is his steady and slow transformation. But at the end of the book, spoiler alert, end of the movie, there really was no permanent damage. Like, nobody died. There was no... the closest thing they come to is the old priest who came and visited. He has a whale of a time. By the end, he's struck blind. Oh, I'm blind! Nothing ever happens. I mean, he's not even in the house when this happens. I don't know. Maybe there are cataracts. I can't explain it. It's a good movie. There's a lot of little kind of scary moments. There's the well, which really isn't explained. He falls into it and is dipped in George falls into it and is dipped in kind of an oily substance. I don't know. It's good. I highly recommend it. In terms of violence, there really isn't that much. I mean, there's some implied violence, but nothing that's going to make you, turn your stomach. I'm not saying sit down at Christmas dinner and pop an Amityville Horror, but I enjoy it. The name comes from, obviously, the city where this took place, Amityville, New York. But it was kind of an homage to that old H.P. Lovecraft story, the Dunwich Horror, which took place in Dunwich, Amityville. Good times. Rod Steiger plays the old crazy priest. I guess he's not that crazy. He tries to help them out, but he goes blind. It happens. It happens to the best of us. So, there you have it. There's a lot of scenes with, flies buzzing around. I don't know what the connection is. Maybe, I guess flies are kind of demonic, I guess. In the scene where Rod Steiger's in there trying to bless the house and the flies are swarming around him, they actually put honey on Rod Steiger's head to attract the flies. That's got to be a good day at work. Let's put honey on your head so these flies will swarm on you. Good times. The cinematographer had a phobia to flies. So when he's zooming in, there's a lot of close-ups on the flies. He actually couldn't look while he was doing it. He just kind of pointed the camera and hoped it all worked out kind of thing. So they actually made 2 sequels. Amityville 2, The Possession, which supposedly told you what happened with the original murders, and that was totally fictionalized. And then Amityville 3D. See, in the 80s, every third movie was like in 3D, Jaws 3D. And this was, again, a totally fictionalized story about another family that lives in the house, and then there's actual demons and things like that. And of course, it's in 3D, so there's a lot of, a lot of this stuff. So there you have it. They also made a bunch of straight-to-video sequels, and then there was the remake in 2005 starring none other than Ryan Reynolds in the James Brolin character. This was still in the Ryan Reynolds must be a movie star, so we're going to put him in every third movie. So, what can you do? I like Ryan Reynolds. Currently, the movie sits at 22% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, that's a travesty. I enjoyed it. The book was scary too. I guess it could be real. I don't know. But it is still streaming instantly on Netflix, so rush out and see it. Let me know what you think. Next week, we're going to go into the sci-fi action comedy genre. It's a very niche genre. We're going to do Death Race 2000, starring David Carradine and Sylvester Stallone. You can't go wrong with that. That is also streaming instantly on Netflix. So go ahead, go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us a big thumbs up. Send me any questions, comments, favorite scenes, favorite quotes. You can also go to our page on YouTube, Kevin D. Subscribe. It's totally free. And you can reach me on Twitter at KD9575. Don't forget to spread the word. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. Jody doesn't like George. So there you go. There you have it. That's a crucial scene in it. When the demon pig, Jody... Okay. Anyway. You don't really see the demon pig anyway. Yeah. So that's a different movie. Thank you for joining us. One other thing I wanted to tell you before I let you go on Amityville Horror. In Finland, it wasn't called Amityville Horror. The direct translation was, for God's sakes, get out of there. I think that's good advice, don't you? So there you have it. Next week, we're going to be doing Death Race 2000. Thank you for joining us, and be well.